All right. Because of time, because you have already started late, Madam Christine, you're welcome. She will talk to us about the importance of SIDA. Why is it important? And yeah, not really.
No, what I mean is the project that's fine to get this.
Okay.
These are really nice. Okay.
So good morning. So maybe I should just start by giving a background to this training. Dominic was threatening that if we are not attending, he will not bring money, as he already said. So for Oxfam, one of our objectives are really to partner with women organizations. Oxfam is a women-focused organization. So we say we have a feminist approach. When we say we use a feminist approach to our programming, it means we have women at the center of our programs. And when we look at women, we are looking at, in every aspect, how do we empower women? How do we ensure that we are empowering women? How do we making sure that women are participating, we are building capacity among women, and hence the partnership with Born to Lead. So because Born to Lead is already it's a campaign for women's rights. So for us, it's really to support. So we had funding, and Dominic has done a lot with Born to Lead and the others in terms of a lot of different areas. Trainings, exposures, meetings, and all those things. But this grant is coming to an end in December, and the remaining activities was this training, and I think also a retreat. So this training, this came from Born to Lead, that they wanted training on SEDO, so that it can be used to continue with the advocacy for women's rights. So what I was hoping from this training, or at least what we agreed, is we'll do the training on SEDO, but also maybe for the retreat, ensure that the training just doesn't end at training. The training becomes, from the training, we also come up with a strategy of an advocacy strategy. So pick what we want from SEDO, to continue advocating. So meaning have an advocacy around women's rights that is based on SEDO. So the training was really not just for the sake of training, but to help us develop our advocacy. What is our message? What are the things we want to focus on? SEDO is the facilitator is going to run us through it. It's very broad. Are we looking at everything in SEDO? Are we picking something that will advocate around? It's up to us to decide that. So for me, I really wanted to, because with Oxfam, I'm hoping that there will be more funding, but it ends in December. But we are hoping that even when we don't have a grant that is running, we can still continue this partnership, because there's a lot of other things that we do that we can partner around. But also, even when you have campaigns, you can still partner with us. So we are hoping that we can continue strengthening our partnership. So the facilitator has asked me to just discuss, to really just discuss the importance of SEDO. So let me just say, I have a degree in human rights law, apart from everything else. So this is very dear to my heart. But my campaigns have always, it's the first time I'm working in this region, the East African region. I work a lot in the Southern African region, all the SADC countries. So I have been part of the reporting process to SEDO, for all the Southern African countries, South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Zambia. So the advocacy for CEDO is something that we have been doing. I have found that it's a very, very important tool for us to continuously, the government's reporter, they are supposed to do periodic reports. So monitoring those reports and ensuring that whatever is being reported, first we are participating in those shadow reports, but also we are ensuring that we are doing advocacy around those shadow reports. But I'm sure the facilitator will cover all that. So I wanted to give that preamble so that, because then it also helps us to start thinking about how are we going to use CEDO to advocate. Because countries ratify, meaning they have agreed and signed up and say they will be held accountable for implementing CEDO. So the importance of CEDO is that we have a human rights framework in the world. I heard a lot of you are university graduates or in school, so we can get to this level. So we have a human rights framework, and we have the Universal Declaration of Rights. We have the rights, social and political rights. What are the other human rights? I've forgotten what I was studying. But we have all those things. So why do we have one particularly for women? Because the Universal Declaration of Rights covers everybody. So why do we have a particular instrument just for women alone? Actually, it's actually women alone, and then we have the rights, the Convention for the Rights of the Child, the CRC. So why? Because we found out as a world, when I'm saying the world, like the whole world, everywhere, even where it's developed, women issues. Even the most developed countries have women issues. America, women issues, women in leadership, payment for women, access for women, even in a developed country like America, it's an issue. Britain, it's an issue. So they're saying it wasn't enough to just have the general Universal Declaration, which everybody signs, and the domestic laws. We needed a particular instrument that forces the government to look at women specifically, and that's what CEDO does. So if you look at CEDO compared to the other international instruments, the other international instruments just say, oh, you have the right to life, you have the protection from torture, you have the right to your conscience, you have the right to political, all those things. But CEDO actually says the government should commit to doing this. The government should ensure they have this in place. So it's very prescriptive in terms of telling the governments what they should do to ensure that. And they don't look at just the protections, they look at ensure that there are women in employment, ensure that culture doesn't affect women, ensure that violence against women, actually there's even an option, like what do they call it? The optional protocol. Is it optional? An addendum which looks at violence against women specifically. So it's a very important tool for us to continue familiarizing ourselves with first the content, but also the mechanism for its enforcement. What is available, and then also how we can engage. Because this is the one that gives us an opportunity to engage institutions directly. You can engage the government directly, you engage the donors directly, because everybody has a responsibility to ensure CEDO is being implemented. Because it actually prescribes what should happen. It's just not giving rights, it's actually saying this should happen. So the main important thing is that first, it actually says women's rights are also rights. And looks at also discrimination and talks about what discrimination is and all that. And then, as I said, all states are legally bound to ensure that they're implementing CEDAW. And then they report, they're supposed to report every year before the committee. And then the committee, of course, they report. So it's progressive. So they report in terms of this is what we have done, and the committee will make comments. So they are even monitoring in terms of what has been done. So it's a very important tool. So it legally binds all states, and then it's exclusively devoted to gender equality. And then, as I said, also it looks at gender in terms of what is, let me look at my notes.
I have it here.
Oh, you have it there already? Not that one, there's a slide that I did that as a summary. So the slide I've used is really just a guide in terms of what we would discuss, what can be discussed, what we can look at, and all those things. But the substantive issues we are going to discuss with the facilitator. I will not go through the whole slide. I just want to look at the, because she has asked me to talk about the role and the importance of CEDAW. So when did South Sudan ratify CEDAW? Has South Sudan ratified? And what does it mean to ratify? When was CEDAW adopted? Have we ever done, we are women, we should, whether, it's a law that protects us. Why I thought of starting with this was because that's the way I start. So, CEDAW, remember I said that we've had human rights instruments. Actually, human rights came about after World War II, when there were so many atrocities that happened. And the main one was when America dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and whatever. Yeah. So, we said, no, we need to regulate each other. There's a limit to which you can do these things. So we have the Universal Declaration of Rights, which protects and whatever. But this was a long, long time ago. So then in 1979, which was just a few years ago, that's when they said we need one specific for women. Because regardless of what progress we are making, women are remaining behind. So generally it was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 1979. So South Sudan ratified it in 2014. Because for you to be bound, remember international human rights, the country has to accept that we will be bound by this law. So they accepted it. So ratifying means just signing it and agreeing to be bound by it. So meaning when they ratify, they agree that they'll be bound by it. And ratifying means then now they have to progressively report how they are progressively, progressively meeting or working towards ensuring that it's being implemented. So CEDAW compels the state parties to take steps to to achieve specified results to eliminate discrimination. Because remember, the basis of this is elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. And then what they are doing in the education sector, in the work sector, health, reproductive, it's the only instrument that actually also looks at, it's the only international instrument that actually looks at reproductive rights of women. We don't have international instruments that look at that before CEDAW. So it's a tool to be used for advancing women's rights at local and at national. So how do we do that at local? Because at national level, we know there's the report, you can print the report and start saying the state, this is what you reported, we are not seeing it, or we are seeing it, or we think this is a gap. But at local level, how, because I want us to, because remember we operate at the local level, or we should be operating at the local level. We should be looking at what, because women's issues are not just issues that happen at the national level. Our advocacy should be informed that what is CEDAW should actually reach the woman at the lowest level, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
So how do we? I don't want to be talking alone. So how do we do that? How do we advocate for the woman at the local level? Please, people, participate. How do we do that?
I think how we can do that is through awareness to the community or to the grassroots, so that our women are aware about the human rights or women's rights.
Yeah. Yes, that's one. What else? That's a very good one, because you have to know. What's the good is a law which protects me and I don't know it. Because the first step is me knowing. I need to know that law. I need that information. Yes. Anything else?
I think the other thing is like the community women leaders, they make some kind of mobilization of the women, gather together and then talk about the women's rights and they get to know about it, because there are some women in the grassroots who don't know about it and they cannot stand on their own. So they will need the help of the other women leaders to extend for help.
To facilitate those discussions.
Yes.
So, so meaning, apart from just letting them know, maybe you enter into discussions to help them understand how it relates to them. You know, to connect their life and to look at what the instrument is providing for and look at their life. And then also maybe discuss in terms of, so what can we do at this level? So information is important. Knowing what is happening. Raising those issues and bringing them to the national level where things happen, it's important. So that you are doing advocacy based on evidence from the ground. This is what is happening on the ground. This is what the instrument is saying, it's providing, the protection is providing. This is what the law says and this is what is happening on the ground. But also them knowing, but also other structures also. Not only women, you know, when you talk women's rights, if you just talk to women about women's rights, does it help?
No, it doesn't.
Who holds power? Who makes decisions? Who controls? So you need to get men on board. You need to ensure that men also understand this. You can put it.
Right, sorry.